I'll never forget the morning it happened, because it started so ordinary and ended with me questioning if I'd somehow stumbled into a bad sitcom. I walked out to my car, coffee still warm in my hand, and there it was, a bright orange slip tucked under my windshield wiper like a warning flag. For a second, I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe a city worker dropped it by accident, maybe a flyer blown in the wind. But when I leaned closer and read the bold letters, my stomach turned over. Notice of violation, unauthorized parking. Fine, $250. I blinked. Unauthorized parking? In my own driveway? With my own car? I actually laughed out loud, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh that bubbles up when you're too mad to form real words. My dog barked from inside the house, pawing at the window like he could sense I was seconds from exploding. And then I heard the voice. You know, the kind of voice that makes your shoulders tense before you even turn around? Sharp, clipped, smug. You can't just park wherever you want, you know. I turned, and there she was. Nancy. Every neighborhood has one. The self-appointed queen of the HOA. Clipboard in her arms like it was Excalibur, lips pinched so tight they might disappear, standing. On the sidewalk like she was guarding Buckingham Palace. I gestured to the driveway under my tires. Wherever I want? This is my driveway. Nancy didn't blink. HOA regulations are clear. Driveways must remain open for emergency access. You signed the agreement when you moved in. I searched my memory. I didn't recall signing anything like that, and besides, what ambulance needed my 5-foot strip of concrete? She smiled then, the kind of smile people give when they think they've already beaten you. If you don't pay within 7 days, additional penalties will apply. Her heels clicked away on the pavement, leaving me standing there with this ridiculous slip fluttering in the wind, heat rising in my chest. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't about safety. This wasn't about rules. This was about control. Nancy had been circling my house for months, like a hawk watching a field mouse. She'd commented on the length of my lawn, complained about the color of my mailbox, even said my recycling bins weren't aligned aesthetically. But this was her boldest move yet. I went inside, slammed the slip onto the counter, and just stood there staring at it. Paying it would mean admitting defeat, but ignoring it felt dangerous. Still, one thing was certain. I wasn't backing down. Not this time. The next morning, I marched down to the HOA office, slip crushed in my fist. The building itself looked more like a beige fortress than a community hub, with its brick walls and tiny windows. Inside, the air smelled like burnt coffee and stale toner. A receptionist looked up, already weary, like she'd seen 100 versions of me before. I need to talk to whoever signed this, I said, slapping the ticket on the counter. Her lips twitched into a smile. That would be Miss Nancy. And, like a stage cue, there she was, appearing from the back office, clipboard in hand as if she slept with it under her pillow. She didn't even look surprised. Mr. Hale, she said, voice dripping with fake warmth. Here to resolve your violation? Resolve? I leaned closer across the counter. You slapped me with a $250 fine for parking in my own driveway. That's not a violation, that's harassment. Her smile never wavered. Section 14, Paragraph 3 of the HOA regulations. Driveways must remain clear for safety access. It's right there in the handbook. I read the handbook. I shot back. It says no boats, no abandoned cars, no junk left sitting around, not my own car, parked overnight. She tapped her pen on the clipboard. Casual, smug. Interpretation matters, and I interpret strictly. My blood boiled. So you can just twist the rules however you like? She met my eyes without a flinch. That's what leadership is for. Behind us, the receptionist shuffled papers, trying not to laugh. Clearly, Nancy had played this game before. I steadied my voice. Here's what's going to happen. I'm not paying your fine. Unless you can show me actual law, not your imagination, I'm ignoring this. For the first time, her smile cracked. Her eyes narrowed. Then penalties. We'll escalate. You'll face liens, collections, maybe even property seizure. The words hung in the air like smoke, meant to choke me. But instead of fear, I felt clarity. I straightened my shoulders. Then I'll fight you in court if I have to. That rattled her, just for a second. She blinked, muttered, "Good luck with that," and slammed her office door. I walked out. With the ticket still in my pocket, my resolve hardened like steel. The next week was anything but quiet. By Tuesday, another notice appeared in my mailbox, threatening to double the fine. By Friday, 3 letters were taped to my front door in bright red ink, each one nastier than the last. But then something started happening. My neighbors noticed. One evening, Derek from across the street called out as I carried in groceries. "Nancy giving you grief about your driveway?" I hesitated, then nodded. "She says it's a violation." He let out a bitter laugh. "She tried that on me last year. Said my truck was too close to the sidewalk. I paid just to shut her up, but I knew it was nonsense." Soon, whispers spread. A woman walking her dog muttered, "She fined me for my trash cans being visible for 5 minutes." Another neighbor admitted he'd been charged because his son's basketball hoop leaned against their garage. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about me. Nancy had built an empire of fear, nickel and diming the entire neighborhood into silence. And then, the final spark. One Saturday, I walked out to find my car egged. Shells cracked against the windshield, yoke dripping, down in yellow streaks. A note was wedged under the wiper, written in bold, confident handwriting. "Pay your fine. Stop causing trouble." That was it. Nancy had crossed a line. I wiped the mess off, grabbed my phone, and started documenting everything. The slips, the letters, even the eggshells. If she thought intimidation would work, she was wrong. That night, I called a meeting in my garage. I texted Derek, knocked on doors, quietly spread the word. By 7 o'clock, a dozen neighbors stood in a semicircle around my workbench, frustration etched on every face. "She's been bullying me," I said, holding up the stack of fines. "But I know I'm not the only one." Heads nodded, murmurs rippled. Frustration buzzed like static in the air. "She thrives because we all think we're alone, but we're not. If we stand together, we can stop her." For the first time, I saw hope in their eyes. Nancy thought she'd started a war with me, but she underestimated how many soldiers she'd created. The following week felt like the calm before a storm. Nancy must have sensed the shift, because her behavior got sharper. Letters arrived daily, now scribbled in bold red ink. Some nights, I saw her pacing past my house, scribbling notes on her clipboard like a general surveying enemy lines. But she wasn't ready for what came next. On Thursday evening, we launched our plan. Derek spread the word quietly. Every homeowner who'd been fined unfairly was to bring their notices to my garage. By sundown, envelopes, printouts, and photos covered my workbench like a crime scene. Garden hoses left out for an hour. Chalk, drawings by kids on driveways, a bird feeder that attracted squirrels. The list was absurd and endless. Karen, sorry Nancy, thinks she can hide behind the handbook, I said, spreading the papers wide. But she's twisting rules, not enforcing them, and now we can prove it. We drafted a letter of our own, signed by 23 homeowners. The message was clear. No one would pay another cent until the board dealt with Nancy's abuse of power. Delivering it was another matter. I volunteered. The next morning, I walked into the HOA office with the packet in hand. Nancy looked up like she'd been waiting for me. "Back again?" she sneered. "Ready to pay what you owe?" Not exactly. I set the packet on her desk. "This is from the neighborhood. Every one of us is done playing your game." Her eyes scanned the signatures, and for the first time, real panic flickered. across her face. You think this means anything? The board backs me. Then the board will see everything you've been doing, every bogus fine, every threat, every rule you twisted to suit yourself. Her knuckles whitened around her pen. You're making a mistake, Mr. Hale. I leaned closer, steady and calm. The mistake was yours, thinking no one would stand up to you. When I left, her office door slammed hard enough to rattle the frame. But the tide had already turned. That night, neighbors gathered again, buzzing with excitement. For once, Nancy wasn't in control, we were. Of course, people like her don't surrender quietly. 3 days later, I woke up to find a certified envelope taped to my door. Inside was her boldest move yet. Final notice, property lien pending. She was actually threatening to seize my home over a parking fine. I held the paper, my hands shaking. Not with fear, but with disbelief. She'd finally overplayed her hand. Derek had already spoken to a lawyer, and that evening, the attorney joined us in my garage. He flipped through the stack of notices, shaking his head. These fines aren't enforceable, he said simply. HOAs have power, but not unlimited power. She's crossed into intimidation and fraud. The room erupted in murmurs. Hope turned into resolve. For the first time, we weren't just fighting back. We had the law on our side. The next HOA meeting was standing room only. Nancy sat at the head table, clutching her clipboard like a shield, eyes darting nervously. When my turn came, I stood and held up the certified notice for everyone to see. This, I said, voice carrying through the hall, is what your president thinks she